Awesome. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're calling from. One of my favorite MVPs, as I say every week, they're all my favorite MVPs. I'm here with Ruth, and it's also one of my favorite topics. We're going to be doing storytelling with Power BI. And I actually have never seen her deliver this content, so it's going to be fun. So I'm going to learn some new things. And as a good presenter, I should know a lot about Ruth. Right? I should go out and give you her biography, her story, her backstory. I'm going to leave her to that. But I am going to take credit for writing her MVP nomination. I'm the one who got her in the program. Been blogging for us, they're already made a reputation, and all I did was recognize it. So, Ruth, tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're going to see today.
Yes, I have it as a part of the presentation. Should we start sharing? So it goes, let me see, share screen. So.
Looks good.
I
can see it.
You can see it?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
So let's see, there you go. So I can see it too. So hello, everybody. We're going to talk about today about storytelling with data and Power BI. And here's the presentation about me. My name is Ruth Pozuelo Martinez, and I am the owner of a consulting company called Corbel AB. We're based in Sweden, or I'm based in Sweden, and I deliver business intelligence to international and local business. I am a Microsoft MVP for the data platform since January 2017, and it was actually Charles that nominated me. Thank you very much. And I'm also a Lean Master and Lean Six Sigma certified. So I guess I'm a qualified data nerd, in other words. I have a YouTube channel where I do Power BI tutorials 3 times a week. On Mondays, I do Power Query. On Wednesdays, Power BI. And on Fridays, I do DAX Fridays, which is basically doing a DAX function every Friday. We're at the moment 17,000 people. So if you want to join us, you're very, very welcome. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk about data visualization, and we're going to talk about creating great reports. And this is something that I am too very passionate about, even though I do not usually talk about it. I should definitely do it more than I do. So before I start giving you tips and tricks, this presentation is full with tips and tricks and examples about data visualization. But before I start that, I would like to go back a little bit to see how things were before and where we are now. So it gives a little bit of perspective of what we are trying to achieve. So for, 20, 30 years back, if you were working with data, it was actually very, very hard to find data. It was locked on suppliers' databases, or it was on a database that it was very old, so you couldn't get it out because there was no export to Excel, or it was used in databases that you didn't have access to. To find data, it was very, very hard. And then the internet came, the cloud came, APIs, and then you have, open source or open data. And now there's data absolutely everywhere. So from having nothing, we are left to having absolutely everything at the same time. And we are all a little bit overwhelmed. I can speak to myself. I have a small company, and the amount of data that I have just for my company is amazing. I can imagine that most of you work in larger companies, and you also perhaps feel a little bit overwhelmed. So this is basically how it feels for me when working with data. You have all these massive data sources, and you know that there are a lot of insights there for you, but you cannot, either you don't have the time or the technology or the knowledge to bring the insights to your company. So this is what we're hoping to do today, to deliver those insights in a way that matters. So this is what I found out working with data. Data is useful only if we are able to, number one, access the data. And we've talked about that. This is not an issue anymore. We say in Lean Six Sigma that when you remove one bottleneck, another one shows up. And it is true here. So we didn't have data. Now we have all the data in the world. But the problem is to actually, make sense of the data so we can actually take actions from it. I mean, everything we do, it has to lead to an action, right? That's why we're spending all this time working through the data and delivering reports so people can actually do something about it, take actions from it. So we talk about accessing data. If we talk now about understanding data, and I think that is the key part when it comes to visualization, this is, I think, something that rings very true to me, and is that the way you present your data will determine if, number one, your insights are understood. So how you present your data to your viewers, to your audience, will determine if they understand the data, the message that you are delivering. It will also determine if they accept the data. And with accept, I mean, I've seen it a lot of times where reports are presented and the audience is like, is that data correct? Am I really seeing the right numbers? So this is very important that if you're doing some cleaning process on the background, everything is perfectly understood before they are actually looking at the report. So they accept the data and they embrace it and they can start using it. And number three, it is clear what actions they should take. So they look at the report and they say, hey, there is something in there. We should take care of it right away. Okay, and we're going to see some examples of that. So here's a case story, based on a true story maybe. So I don't know, probably a lot of you have some kind of a sport watch. It is very, very common today. This is a Garmin Forerunner, and my other half has actually one of these. And he uses when he goes running or biking or cycling or whatever we're doing. And we went for a bike run, I don't know, it was like 2-3 years ago. And he always does the same, goes to his phone and connects the Garmin and downloads the data. And I said, can I see how the dashboard looks like? I work with data, so for me it's very interesting to see. And this is basically what you are presented to. If you have a Garmin, you've already seen this probably. So I was looking at, we went for a bike ride. So I was looking at, what we did. And I was like, what is this dashboard trying to tell me? And then I couldn't really see the value of the data presented. So I asked him, I said, okay, what do you do with this data? And he said, I think it's nice to see the data in a map. And I agree with you. I mean, it's actually quite fun to see where you've been. But, the analytic staff, it was not very clear what to do with it. So as curious person as I am, I said, okay, I've got to find out. I went to Google and I did a quick search about what to do with Garmin data. And this was the first search result, and is what to do with Garmin data. And there were hundreds of threads like this. What do I do? This guy just bought a Garmin and start recording the runs, and he doesn't know what to do with the data, which I think is a pity, because I'm imagining that Garmin has spent like thousands of dollars just putting these things together, and then we don't know how to use it. Here's another one. It says, besides all of the reports and analytic stuff, I just enjoy seeing my routes displayed on a satellite photo. And I thought it was quite fun that, yeah, we all agree that seeing things in maps is actually quite fun, but the analytic stuff, not very useful. And I mean, I understand Garmin is a technology company, not a fitness company. So perhaps they are not so much into delivering fitness stuff. And a lot of the users I could find on the search that they download the data in Excel and they do their own analysis. But this is a big opportunity, for example, for a company like Garmin to actually deliver more value. So based on this, I will go to my first tip. And it is always ask your data, so what? And you're probably going to wonder, okay, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Let me show you. Let's put the so what test into practice. Here we have the same dashboard that I downloaded from the internet. This is from somewhere, I don't know, I think in the US or something. And let's see what it looks. It says that this person ran 8.31 minutes a mile. So if we ask, so what? What does it mean? Did he had a good run? Did he had a bad run? We don't know, right? We have no idea. Just by looking at that, we can't tell. If we look at the elevation, it says 106 feet. So what? Am I learning anything that helps me improve my run or my bike ride or my fitness? Not like that, right? And then the distance, 10 miles. Again. And then you're probably thinking, hey, I have a watch like that. And I know how often, I know how fast I normally run. I know the distance that I normally run. So I know if I'm doing good or bad. And it's just fair enough. But I think the dashboard should be good enough. So even I could tell if you had a good run, even if because I don't know how often you run and I don't know your historical data. Otherwise, it would have been enough that Garmin delivers just a day's run and doesn't save anything. But obviously, you want more than that, right? So that takes me to tip number 2, which is always put your data into context. Context, context, context. So important. And if you don't know what context is, let me show you with an example. It is so much easier to explain. So we're back into the same dashboard, but this time Garmin hired me and it says, okay, Ruth, let's fix this. So we go through the same thing. We said, okay, the pace for this run was 8.31 minutes per mile. And I've added the average pace for all runs, normally is 5:24. And then suddenly we start saying, maybe you had a bad day, right? Normally you run at 5, today you run at 8. So what's wrong? And this is the interesting part about context. Suddenly we can start telling a story about our run. And it didn't take more than a line. We know that we normally run at 5:24, and today we run at 8, something is going on. And then we start asking questions, which is even better. Like, what's going on? So we can continue with the data. The distance, 10 miles. So I've put average distance 9.24. And I said, still not looking good. I didn't have a good day at all. Still, we're building our story and we're able to tell the story based on the context that we're giving with the data. Finally, we said altitude, it says 106 feet, but the average altitude when we run or when that person ran is 2 feet. So they were running at a higher altitude, and maybe that is why it just took longer for that run. So maybe that was a good run after all. So by putting 3 lines and giving context to our data, we're actually able to tell a story. And this is the power of context. It's very, very, very useful. This leads me to our tip number 3, which is another great way to show context, which is show trends. Let me show you. So you're going to tell me, I can see the chat, so tell me if this is good or bad, okay? Server connection is 0.4 seconds. Is that a good metric or is it a bad metric? And you're going probably to say, I know nothing about servers. This is actually data from my website. It is true data. And it is a fair enough question. But you say bad, good, bad. Well, what if I show you this? As you can see, and again, this is live data. It says 0.1, 0.2. That's where my server was, or my host, the website host server was running. And then suddenly it goes up to 0.5, 0.4. So when I saw that, I just called my web host and I said, hey guys, something is wrong with the server. I sent the Google Analytics data and I said, yes, we have a problem. They fixed it and then my server connection went down again. So just by seeing the trend line, I could understand that this was bad, even if I don't know a lot about servers, and then they could fix it. And this is an example of how good visualizations lead to actions. The next one is page load time, 40 seconds. So imagine you go to powerbi.com and it takes 40 seconds to load. And here's the thing. Some people would say that is a horrible, horrible, horrible load time. And other people would say, well, that's what normally takes me. And yeah, depending on where you are in the world, your internet connection is going to vary. And 40 seconds might be a good thing. So if we see page load time 40 seconds and I show you that, should I go run into my web designer, which is me, and fix that problem? Well, obviously not. As you can see, there is only one day where the page load was 40 seconds. And that was when I went to the data and I can see the related data. You can see that it was people from a certain place in the world where the internet connections are not very good, and they were very active that day on the website, and that's where the page loads went to 40 seconds. Normally, it goes a little bit above 5. So here is an example where something looks bad, but when you actually see the trend or the context, it is not that bad at all. You should not take decisions until you have some context about the data. So tip number 4, select the right visuals. And then it says whenever possible. The whenever possible is actually a very important part of it, because it depends on, number one, the tool that you're using. There are some tools that will not allow you to use a specific visual that you might want to use. When it comes to Power BI, you have both the out-of-the-box custom visuals. The visuals, you have custom visuals, and then you can code your own. So basically, it's your ability to create your own visuals that will somehow not allow you to use the visual that you want. Otherwise, you're good to go. But there is another parameter that is very important to think about, and is that you should think about your audience. So think like this. You are a team of data scientists, and you know everything about standard deviation, and you know everything about variation, and you have all the complex, R visualizations in the world, and you and your team understand everything, and those things make sense. Now, let's say that you're doing a research project and it is successful and you have to show it to, for example, the government. And you take that report to the government and they will probably won't be able to understand a word you're saying. And if we translate that in, for example, for finance, let's say that you're speaking with your CFO, your finance guy, and he starts talking about ROE and IRR, and they have all these technical words that for them means something, but it might not mean the same to you. They have to translate it so you can understand it. And that is the same for us. We have to create the visuals so our audience can understand it, not only yourself. So you have to think about who your audience is and what is the type of visual that you should use. So let's do some exercises. Here we have a pie chart, a lovely, who doesn't like pie charts? Hands up. So this pie chart.
Yay for pie charts!
So here we have a pie chart that is showing the supplier market share. So we have supplier A, B, C, and D, and there are different market shares. So here's a question to you. which supplier has the biggest market share? See, right, you can write A, B, C, or D. Normally, when I do this presentation, most of the people say supplier B, except the ones that know the trick and say supplier A. But obviously, your eye is telling you that is supplier B, right? What happens if I show you the visualization like this? Then you will see that supplier A is actually the bigger, right? So, first of all, no 3D charts ever. Don't touch them. Don't even think about it. It's just horrible types of visualization. The next one is pie charts. I'm not a fan of pie charts at all. I normally deliver tree maps instead of pie charts. Why? Well, it is harder to visualize the data. It is harder when it has round form. But if you have to do a pie chart, make sure you actually do an ascending or descending form. You have to do that because otherwise you have people guessing which pie is bigger than which, and they shouldn't be spending time on that. It should be super clear. Okay. So next exercise. Here we have a simple chart that it has miles driven per month on the x-axis, and then it has cost per mile on the y-axis. And what do you think about this one? Which one do you think is more clear or gives us a clearer picture? Obviously, you're probably going to say the right one. And this is because of the use of color. It is our eyes are taking the attention to the color dots, showing us which data points have the highest cost per mile, or above average at least. And telling the story with colors is very, very powerful. Power BI has in the last months delivered a lot of conditional formatting, and you can do a lot of tips and tricks now with Power BI to deliver story with colors, so make sure you take advantage for that. Now, here you can actually tell two stories. You can say, okay, obviously you want to highlight the one with the highest consume or the highest cost, but not necessarily. Imagine that you are a car manufacturer and you are showing competitors' data. So you are the gray ones and they are the orange ones. You have the possibility to tell two stories here. You can tell the story that we are the best with the lowest performance and color the lower one, or you have the opportunity to say our competitor has the highest. And you have to choose which statement you want to tell. I'd rather say we are the lowest and color the lower points, because that's the one that people look at first and remember the most. So put attention or put color where you want people to pay attention to. And it is not always the bad numbers, sometimes it's the good ones. Another one, how much are we growing versus previous year? This is a typical sales chart. You have months on the x-axis, and then you have sales and previous year sales. So here's the thing, if you want to know how much we're growing versus previous year month by month, this is probably a better chart because it's actually telling you that. Otherwise, you have to go through every line and point it, and you have to try to understand which months we're going minus. In the chart below is very, very clear. And if you have the space, put both, because it will give volume and difference. You're really giving context to your data. So this is basically what I call the forest or the trees. When I do a visualization, I said, okay, do I show the forest? It means, do I show everything, the volumes, or do I show the trees? That means the difference between both. Sometimes you show both, sometimes you show one, sometimes you show the other. It depends on the story that you want to tell, okay? So you will recognize a good visual when, let's hold it, you can understand what it conveys in just a few seconds. This is a very good trick that you can apply to your own visuals. And perhaps not you, but your neighbor, whoever is sitting next to you, you can test your visuals this way. Let's do a test. Let's see how that goes. Here's one visual. We have our business is the blue diamond, and this is we're comparing ourselves with a bunch of competitors. So now I'm going to ask you this. Where are we doing better? So go wild in the chat and tell me, where are we doing better? So let's try it again. Let's do it here. Here we have our business, and then we have the competitors. Where are we doing better? You've probably seen it now, right? Exactly. So you see the difference? And there's a lot of good points in this chart. There is, first of all, it is ordered by how good we're doing by our business. It is just one color on our business, and the competitors do not have colors, but they are in order, so you can see who is who, even if they don't have a legend. It makes things super clear. So you can see, for example, selection, we're doing the worst, and competitory is doing the best. It just takes seconds to understand what's going on. Should we do it again? Let's try another one. This is easier, actually. Let's go. Who has the lowest scores? Go well in the chat if you want to give it a go. Now, let's try it again. Who has the lowest scores? And you can say, okay, it was actually not that hard to know that it was Lancet because it was in order. If it wasn't in order, it would have been harder for you. But it is also to see, okay, how bad am I against my competitors? The stars gives you actually a very, very clear picture of not only who is the worst, but also how bad I am comparing to. You can do it, of course, with the numbers, but it requires a little bit more thinking, basically. So tip number 5. So this is Fredrik Eklund. I don't know if you know who he is, but he has a TV show on the US and also on the Swedish television. It's called like the $1 million listing, I think. And they are real estate agents in New York City. It is a great show for negotiation and sales if you're interested. But why is this guy here? That is the main thing. Well, here's the thing. When you are doing reports, when you're creating reports, you should design your report the same this guy designed their houses. You can see that they make over their houses when they are selling. And to give you an example, I was thinking, okay, I should have a picture of a place. And I was thinking New York because these guys were from New York. And the only person I know with a luxurious thing in New York, I'm sorry guys, is Trump. So I have here a picture of what I call a conversational room on the Trump Towers. You can see New York in the background. I don't know if it is actually his house. I just found it on Google. It might be, it might not. But if we put aside the fact that if this, tasteful or not, is it beautiful or not, taste is a relative thing, a subjective thing. There are key elements here that you will find in any luxurious home that is important to note that you should apply to your report. Hear me out. There are here 2 sofas. There are 4 chairs, and they are placed in a circle. So this is a place where you sit and you talk to each other. There are no groups. It's like everything is a big circle, so everybody talks to each other. There are 2 big round tables that have a lamp above, so it's illuminating that space. And then every piece of furniture has a table. So probably you're here, you're chatting, you have a drink, and you can put the drink on your table. So even it doesn't show very clear, but every chair has a table. There's just a painting on the floor, on the roof. There are no paintings anywhere. Everything's like very clean and clear. Okay, there's not a lot of stuff. It's not packed with stuff. And this is how you should design your report. Let's give it a go. Your report should be beautiful. I'm not saying that Trump house is beautiful. I really don't think it is, but beautiful is a subject. It is not an objective thing, and it probably depends on culture. So do whatever your audience thinks is beautiful, if you would say so. But make it beautiful, make that effort. It's very important. We will talk about that at the end. Make it spacious. I see a lot of reports where are thousands of visuals in there. Don't do that. Don't put a visual just because you have a space. Don't be afraid of the white space. It should be one tab, one story. Decide what that story is going to be, stick to it, and don't put anything else that is not supposed to be there. And that's where the so what test goes in. Anything you put, you should say, so what? Is this giving me any information that I need to tell my story? Plan all the things that you put in your report or in your dashboard, in your tab. Make sure that everything that is there for a reason, and how it looks for a reason. Let me give you an example. This is a typical Power BI slicer as a list. One of the wonderful things about Power BI is you can transform the same visual in different ways. So for a slicer, you have a list, you have a drop down, and then you have buttons. So this is great, for example, if you have just a few items on the list and you know that your users are clicking on it very, very often. So one thing to have in mind with working with Power BI is that it schedule refreshes, okay? So new data comes all the time. So what starts as 5 can end up as 20 in just a month. So I don't usually use this unless I know that it's, for example, stores, and you don't open a store every month. Then this is okay, but only if it has a few items. I've seen a lot of reports that have like 3,000 list items, and it's real estate space wasted. You're a luxury real estate agent now. Remember that. Use a Dropbox. One of the things that the Dropbox has is the drop-down box, is the search item. Unfortunately, it doesn't go by default. It would be great if it did, but you can add the search box and then the user can just search and easily find what it looks for. The third option is to have squares like you see there. And the reason to have it like that is if you are doing a mobile report. With the mobile reports being smaller now, they're getting bigger. But still, you need, you have a big hand. It's going to be very difficult to go to list slicer and select something. So to have this type of button reports is actually very, very good. And it will help your users navigate your report easily. So, my friends, be creative, okay? Think about the options that you have and go for it. If the visual doesn't exist, just create your own. Or, there are so many tips and tricks that people are sharing all over the internet. So don't be worried about being creative. It's actually very, very good. Look at this boy. But don't go overboard. What do I mean with this? This looks visually gorgeous, but not for data analysis. This is probably like a modern art piece, I would say. Nobody understands that. Nobody has the time to understand it. If you have to go to Google to learn how to use a visual, don't use it. And don't get me started on that one. Again, if you're a team of data scientists and you use this all the time and everybody knows what it is, go wild. Absolutely. And your tool allows for it. But if not, stay away. Because your audience will feel stupid and you don't want that. You want to empower them with data, right? That's the goal that we have. So the top 6 tips that we have, again, it was data is useful if you can access it, understand it, and take action. We have the so what tip, like ask that the so what test, give context, for example, showing trends. Pick the right visuals. Let your data talk to you about what visual is right, okay? If you have a lot of outliers, if you have seasonal data, some standard visuals might not work. You might need to probably engineer your own. Do that. And make sure that you use your space well. And that does not mean put everything on it. On the contrary, just give it air, give it space. So here we have a Power BI dashboard. We're going to put some of these things into the test. As you can see, it says up there to the corner, I don't know if you see it, it says Office 365 month. I don't know if it's Monday or month, not sure. But I mean, the title should be a little bit more specific about what we are seeing. It should be very clear what this report is about. What is the story? What do I want to do when I come to this report? You see number of outages, and then you remember the so what test? It says 927 last week. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Is that a bad thing? And then you can say, okay, Ruth, there is actually a number of outages down there that gives a little bit of context. But you see the number of outages up there is last week. This is monthly. So it suddenly start to count stuff. Like, okay, so which week is this? It's not that easy. So it has to be, remember, seconds to understand your data. This one is actually very good because it's actually showing you the trends and it's showing you 2 peaks that you should probably pay attention to. What's going on there? Is it a good peak or is it a bad peak? As you know, the data is blurred. We don't know what is it about, so we don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But in the visual up there, just because we have the possibility to convert data into visuals, it doesn't mean that we need to do visuals for everything. Numbers and tables are okay. I would rather have a number there that says 99.97 and then the goal, which is probably, I don't know, for Office 365, maybe it's 99.999. So it gives you an idea, okay, we're here and this is our goal. I don't think it's 100%. It shouldn't be. Nothing can be up 100% of the time. But the next one, real estate agent. There is too much things going on. Where should I focus my attention? What should I look like? What is the important part? And there is way too much stuff going on in here. So when you're doing a dashboard, when you're doing a report, after you created everything, step back and say, okay, can people access it? It means put in powerbi.com. Make sure the people that needs to have access have it. And did you have the right access if you have row-level security? Do they understand what you're trying to convey? What are you trying to convey? What is your message? What is your story? Is it about how many outages we had for the month? And say, outages this month, Office 365, title, boom, big title. So it's very clear. You don't have to find it. And then, is there anything in here that makes them go and do something? Maybe perhaps this trend line would do that, would actually, there's like 8,000 something there that should be looked at. And then if you have answered yes to those questions, you have a good report. Here's the thing, working with data as much as I do, I see a lot of good reports and I see a lot of bad reports. And it breaks my heart, literally breaks my heart to see a bad report because I know how much work it is to put it. It's a gigantic effort. Users only see the last part, but oh my God, I'm going to give you a quick rundown in case some of you do not work with the entire workflow. But very, very quickly, to create a report like that, you have to find the data. It's not always available. You have to access the data. Power BI has a lot of custom connectors, and you can create your own. Sometimes it takes 0 seconds. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer if your data, for example, cannot be accessed directly. Once you have the data in Power BI, you have to clean it. Very, very rare. You don't have to do that. And then you have to model it. How often have you find a model that has one table, right? Very, very seldom. Then once you have your model, you create your DAX calculations, right? Year over year, last year performance, you name it. And once you start to put your nose above the water, you're creating your visuals. And not only that, then you have to do the branding and design so they look gorgeous. If you remember from our real estate, make it look beautiful. And for me, I don't know how it is for you guys, by the time I get to the calculation, I'm fed up with that specific report and I just don't want to use it anymore. When I'm doing the visuals, I'm just half doing them. So I've learned a trick, and is I do my reports after calculations, and if it's possible, and fortunately it's been possible up to now, I give it a day or two before I make the visuals. Because then you start seeing the data with the new light, and you get excited about what you're seeing again, right? And then you can start creating a story and visualizations and brandings and designs with a little bit more energy than if you just do everything on one go. So step aside, take a rest, at least go for a coffee or two, and then go back and finish it. Because here's the thing, the last 20% matters. And the last 20% is the branding, design, and the visuals. Okay. That is, it takes a lot of effort because you've already done so much, but it's the difference between life and death, I want to say. Here's the thing. Here is a report I created for the FIFA World Cup in 2018, right? The soccer or football FIFA. And I show you on YouTube how to create the report, how to clean it, the DAX, and how to make the visualizations. And we did this before the game, so you can actually use these then during the games. And this is why you see here in the first page, this is the first page of the report, you can see big buttons everywhere, because I thought, okay, you're going to be in a pub, you're going to have your mobile, and then you're going to click with your fingers in there. So I have to make sure that you can click where you want to click, right? So now we're going to see some difference of how it looked before and how it looked after. So this is, the knockout phase you can see here in there. This will take you to the report, but I don't think we have time to go through it. So this is a custom visualization. That was the only one I could find that would do the hierarchy for the matches. So this is round one, and then the semifinals, and the finals and all that stuff. And it worked good, but I couldn't really modify it the way I wanted. So I end up doing exactly the same thing, but by hand. And here you can see some of the elements that we talked before. So it is exactly the same thing as just being designed, if you would say so. So, let's go. So here we have the Uruguay and Spain and France, Argentina. This red, and they are both red because they go to the semifinals, so to the next round. This is the blue ones, this is the yellow ones, and this is, the color leads your eyes to the right place. Then we go to the semifinals, and then we go to the finals. As you can see, the finals is incorrect because I didn't account for draws, when either you don't win or lose. And you guys saw that and create the encode for that. So I just didn't change it here. But otherwise, it worked perfectly. So this is an example of how to take, the last 20%. After all the cleaning, and that took longer than to do this. Here's another example. Here we have, this is the matches. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to sit on a bar and I want to know who is playing when and with who. So I said, okay, I need a slicer for countries, and then I have both the map and the slicer here, the button slicer. We don't need both. I actually removed one of them. I want to know by group. I want to see, okay, who is playing group D and when. And then I wanted to have a calendar. So I said, okay, it is Friday today. Who is playing on Friday, basically? And then the table there will tell me who against who, which date, which group, at what time. And it ended up looking like that. It's not a huge difference if you look at it. It's just a picture on the background. Reorganize things a little bit. Having, again, the big buttons for if you're watching on your mobile and looking on your mobile. On the map is a little bit harder, but you can zoom in and zoom out like a pinch. But it makes the whole difference, right? And this sometimes is the difference from report not being used, report being used. And again, because you spend so much time creating the report, just do the last 20% to make sure that it looks tip-top. And if you say, Ruth, I'm not a designer. I don't know how to do this. Fair enough, but you probably have a marketing team that can help you, because this is just like branding something. They are a specialist on that. Ask them for help. They will help you. Next one. This is Google Analytics. This is a growth report. This is a report that I had for, again, my website. I shared this with you. And what I wanted here was just one page. The story is like this. I want one page. And on that page, I just want to see how my site is growing. And I don't want a slicer where I have to go back and forth to see month growth, year growth. No, I just want to open here, look at it, and see in a snapshot, am I growing or not? Yearly, monthly, weekly, yesterday, and today. So this is how it looked when I just, after I do the calculation and put my nose above, then you end up looking like this. I mean, I can't bother to do anything else. But a few days later, it can end up looking like this. And it's just branding, it's just color, it's nothing else. But it has a little bit more logical structure. You have like here, year, month, day, yesterday, and today. And then you have this year, and here you have previous year, and here you have the difference. So when I go into this report, I just look at the end. I just look at these big boxes and I say, is it plus? I don't bother. Is it negative? I bother. If it's over plus, if I'm doing very, very well, I want to know why. Did I do something, a campaign or a video or something that trigger that? But otherwise, I just leave it and say, okay, good, I'm growing, fine, happy. You see, your manager would love you, or your teammates or whoever is watching your reports, if they could just, do I need to do something? Yes or no? Are things going good? Yes or no? This is an example of like an explanatory report. Exploratory report would be those that you go and ask questions like, how am I doing here? How is this? How is that? Okay? The difference between those. This is, am I doing okay? Do I need to worry? No. Okay, moving along. More examples. This is a report for Microsoft Tech Days conference in Sweden. They do it every year. And we had I helped them with an IoT device that actually collected custom, feedback from the audience. So they have the sessions, and after the session, they click on something and they will give you scores. We use the Microsoft IoT. We use streaming analytics. We use all the Microsoft bits to do real time on feedback. And we had this, only this, on the big place where everybody is, where all the where the participants go. And this was a huge success because two reasons. Number one, you could very easily see, is Tech Days going good or not? So the people that were organizing were very happy with that. But the top speakers was a popular one because when the speakers were ready with their sessions, they could just go there and see, I'm one of the top speakers. And they were actually, tweeting, and I say, oh, I'm the top speaker. And people were, I've been here, or I've been to the session of the top speaker. And look at what it is. It's nothing. It's just one bar chart and a list of speakers. And it was very, very powerful. So you don't need to put a lot of data to actually have an impactful report. Here is an example for a YouTube report. And this is more like an infographic. This is made actually in Power BI. And it is very easy to make. It's just a picture on the background, and then you have cards on top. And then you're giving some feedback. You have like, this was done a while ago, 12,000 subscribers is one subscriber per 110 views. How much am I growing per month? How many video views? You can see the top 3 countries. So this is like a snapshot of a YouTube channel that looks a little bit better than just put cards, okay? Here is an example of how a project report could look like. This is made for, again, the YouTube channel to see when you reach different milestones, but it can very well use for projects. This is okay. This is the first milestone that we hit. We hit it on that date. You could have like green instead of 1, 2, 3. You could have green for on time, or red or yellow. You can go wild with your visualizations. And if you don't know really how to do it, hire a designer, or your marketing team, or if you have a colleague that has a good eye, go for it, because that 20% makes a huge difference on your presentations. This is the last one. It is I did a Power BI user group presentation on Galway in Ireland, and then I did the same presentation on Power BI Days in Belgium. It was virtual, I was not there. But I wanted to have, present about Power BI, and I wanted to have a fun data set. So I took Billionaires Data. So it's Forbes list of billionaires in 1996, 2001, and 2014. And then on the session, I just show how to create the report. And this was the first page for the report. And the reason why it looks like this, you see, it's 3 cards and nothing else. But this thing sets things into perspective. The title of the session was, Who Wants to Be a Billionaire? And if you look at these numbers, you can actually see what your odds are of being a billionaire, but you can actually make it more clear. You can put it like this. You can say, this can be your page 1. Your chances of becoming a billionaire in 2014 were actually this big. It's 0. How many zeros? So that put things into perspective. If you want to be a billionaire, your odds are very low. Then you could go into the report. I think this is clickable, maybe not that one, but the other one is clickable. So you could actually see where the millionaires are, what do they work with, which areas should they go for, is it, how they make the money themselves, or how they inherited the money. And there was tons and tons of information about our billionaires, so it was quite fun to do. But this is something that you can use, and it's very powerful. You know the data better than anybody. You are crunching the numbers, you're cleaning the numbers, you're working with it. You know where the insights are. So sometimes, or often if you can, make sure that you put things clear, like this is what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing it because of this and this. And here is your chances of becoming a billionaire are quite low. But despite that, if you still want to, let's go and deep into the data to see what it takes, or what things you could do or they do that you could replicate. So how do you spot a great report? After everything we've seen, these are my last 3 takeaways. Number 1, does it lead you to take action? You or your audience. So once you've done the Power BI report, you need to ask yourself, is my report done in a way that people can actually take action on the insights that we are delivering? Have you or your audience obviously learned something new? Is there something that you've shown on the report that nobody knew about and that it could be useful to them? Do you understand what it conveys in a very few seconds? And then you know that you've created a great report, okay? So do less of everything, I would say, and do more of design. Make sure that you put that 20%, the last 20%, that you actually make that effort to make your reports look great. And then it's actually conveying the insight that you know already that is there. Don't be shy. Just say, I've seen this on the data. This is something that we should look at. Of course, you should also deliver what they are asking you for, but there are some insights in there that they should definitely see. So how about pointing them out? So this is my last slide, and we are 5 minutes in. Maybe you want to ask some questions in the last 5 minutes, or Maybe Chuck, you have some.
So Ed Hansberry is asking, where's the best place to get these slides? Are you going to post a blog post on the community blog, or where can they get the slides? And people have said that you did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, where you guys prefer to put it? I can put it on the community blog, or if you have a place, Chuck, where I should put it, you let me know.
If you don't have a preferred location, then the community blog would be awesome. Go out and do a, hello, this is what I presented, and just attach it there. Piece of cake. So that means everybody on the call, go to community.powerbi.com and look for this blog, and you can find it there.
Yeah,
you can also find some of Ruth's other blog posts, like I like the weather one with Flo, where you can actually find out whether or not the ice cream men need to get more ice cream based on the weather. You did a report with Flo.
So when I was doing an ice cream company,
yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, I have a question for you. One of the questions that came on earlier is, how do you make a slicer out of buttons? And a long conversation came back on whether or not you use the chiclet slicer or the native one with images. What do you recommend? How do you solve that problem?
I always use the native one.
Okay.
I think that it does what I need. It's very rare that I use the custom one, and you don't have to download it. You don't have to think about versions, where it just works out of the box.
That's right. Alan was saying that there's a bunch of different problems he's run into, and hopefully Amanda can fix it. If you have issues, make sure to put those on ideas.powerbi.com. But yeah, the images in our native slicer does an amazing job of making buttons.
Yeah. I think it is gorgeous, and you can put it vertical, horizontal. I mean, you can do basically most of the basic needs. And remember, we should do things a little bit basic. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. So in 99 of my reports, 99 of the visuals are native. Very, very rare I use custom visuals.
So a couple of people commented, I've got an echo. I think it's actually coming back from your side back into your own mic, since you're not using a headset. And I want to apologize to Kimberly and a couple of people. Otherwise, to folks like Richard and Alan, who've been answering these questions, thank you very much. And I'm going to hand it back to you to close.
What do you say? Would you hand it back to me?
I'm going to hand it back to you to say hello and goodbye. Thank you very
much. Yes. So thank you very much for attending. I really hope that you enjoy the presentation. Again, I will put it on the community blog. It will take me one day or two, so please be patient with me. I just have to, probably write a little bit of text to make sure that people that haven't seen this, they know what it is. And thank you. I really hope that it was useful, and I'm looking forward to watch it back and to see your comments, because I couldn't follow along on your comments. Sorry, it's a little bit of delay, so it's a bit hard to be on the comments too.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I'm going to go ahead and close the call. You guys have a great day out there in internet land.
Thank you. Bye.